Hi everyone! Have you ever wondered if you should book that travel insurance or not? I most certainly have thought about it every single time, and I have to admit that most of the time I did not book it. But my guest today might change my view on it, maybe forever, and maybe yours as well. Welcome, Triple SD from Deep Incisions. Thank you so much for being here today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here today, Hannah. I'm really stoked.
Thanks. I am very curious. You are a travel bug like me, and I want to know, how did traveling start for you? What are your experiences, and what was your main motivation to travel?
Hmm. That's a very, very good question. So, how did traveling start for me, and what was my main motivations? Well, you have to go right back. You see, I grew up in Aotearoa, New Zealand. My father was working for the New Zealand government in the 1980s. So, what would happen is that when you're a public servant, you'll get moved around the country a lot.
Yeah.
And as a kid, not only did I move all around the country and live everywhere, but also we went traveling a lot around the country to various towns, various cities, beaches, and stuff. So, from I think I caught my first plane. I can remember quite clearly catching my first flight when I was about one and a half.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I loved it. I loved being on a plane. I loved the uniforms. I loved the food. I loved everything about it. So I think that's really where my travel bug first started.
Very cool. So you were a travel baby.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely, and then it took a little bit longer due to life and money and commitments and study and whatever for me to travel autonomously by myself. But my first big solo trip was to Samoa actually, and I went and worked there for a couple of months, creating a documentary for tourism, and I got really immersed in the culture and I fell in love with it. And I knew from that point that there was a huge, huge, big world to see. So I made a commitment to myself that I'd continue to go see it and soak it all up and eat the culture and smell the weird smells on the streets and talk to the people and learn things.
Yeah. How old were you at your first solo trip?
Mm, I want to say 31.
Right, right.
So it was a long time, before I actually could go overseas because, like I said, I couldn't afford it. That was a big thing, and especially back then, the cost was quite prohibitive. So you had to have a lot of money to get the
Yeah.
tickets, save up to pay for accommodation and everything. So that opportunity for me was really good because I didn't have to pay. So, um, yeah, it was really a really interesting sort of set of circumstances and adventures that happened there. Um, Basically, it ended up in me almost creating an international incident, but we can talk about that another day. It was primarily through my boss, who was dubious to say the least, and he essentially tried to kidnap me and stole my passport and stole my camera, and then threatened to take me out the back of a tiny little village in Samoa and abandon me there. So that was pretty interesting, being in a foreign country by myself, not very much money, not knowing anyone, and having to navigate through that. But I was very fortunate that I met some locals and they took me under their wings and they helped me. And
Right.
through that, I actually fell in love with the people and the culture.
I am a bit like, I'm so sorry, and that's definitely not the topic for today's episode, but I need to know what happened.
Wow. Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was just one of those weird sort of clash of cultures, like the dude that I was working for was from Aotearoa, but he was quite conservative when I'm not. So he sold me this big vision of this thing I was going to do, and I went there, and it soon turned into a really draconian, authoritarian environment where I had zero agency of my own life and my own destiny. So I was forced to work really long hours, starting really early in the day, with really hard sort of absolutes about how I had to act, what I had to wear, and stuff. So that never was going to work for me. So basically, long story short, is that I confronted him and I was like, this can't happen anymore. And he was like, well, that's your problem. And then I went out with my new friends and got home and my passport, camera, all my stuff, computer was all gone. And I was like, what? And then he wasn't there. And then he came back in the morning and said, oh, well, so you're moving out here. You'll get all your stuff back when you get there. And you have to get your own way home because part of the deal was that I returned tickets. I was supposed to be there for 4 months, and he cancelled my tickets. So I was like, what? So I didn't know what actually didn't know what was going to happen at that point. So I was like, there's no way I'm going there. So luckily, I went and stayed with my friends. So
Very good. I think
hmm,
that's just such a great example for meeting locals and actually building the connection, and then realizing that there is help in every situation, no matter how bad the situation can be.
hmm.
You will be able to get help somehow, especially when you are just like a nice person and you respect other people's culture. Okay, so obviously you got out of that.
I don't think so. Here I am. Woo!
Which is a bit crazy, but I'm glad you shared that, even in a short version. But then clearly, and maybe because of it, you made it further than just Samoa, because Samoa is relatively close to Aotearoa. But you've been also to Europe and all sorts of places, right?
Yeah, I have. I've been very, very fortunate in this life to being able to see a vast majority of this planet. So it's very, very cool.
And would you say it was mainly because of job reasons or private, personal leisure time?
Majority was private. It was travel because I felt like I wanted to. There was a few opportunities later where went to Frankfurt and I was an invited guest at a sort of glitch art experimental video conference. So I went and stayed and hung out with like these amazing artists from all over Europe, and had to do a presentation. And yeah, so but other than that, it's all mostly just for personal, just because I wanted
Cool.
to.
Yeah, very good. And it's a very good reason, right?
Oh, absolutely, travel broadens the mind, and everyone should do it at least 20 times in their life. I think.
I agree. I agree. But that's what we are here for, right? Like why we are on this show and why I want to share it to kind of infect more people.
Indeed.
Spread the travel bug.
True.
But the main question is, with all your personal trips, have you every time booked in the travel insurance?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have. Um, like many of us, we're influenced by older members of our family, right? In particular, grandparents, great grandparents, if you're fortunate to know them. My grandmother, she had always been hammering in this little thing in my mind from a little boy. And what that was is that you should always carry an umbrella because you never know when you're going to get wet. So
Yeah,
what you mean by that is always being prepared, always have insurance, always have all your ducks in a row. So if anything was to happen, then you know you'll be okay.
yeah. It is a very good mindset. And I have to say that I actually grew up like that too, like with this whole safety feeling. And I have to say, I think it's maybe even cultural. Like back home, we have so many insurances for
Mm.
everything. For your apartment you rent, for health, you need to have health insurance, for your car, I don't know. We have so many. I had probably 5 or 6 different insurances.
Wow.
And that's just like basic, you know? I'm not one of the crazy ones with a lot. I'm the basic one.
Wow.
And for me, I always was on the security side because of the way I grew up. As you said, your grandparents, your parents. And for my parents, security was really important financially, but also health wise, and so on. So it's actually a surprise for me that I usually did not book it. But when I came to New Zealand, because I didn't know what would happen, how long, and so on, no support, I definitely booked in health insurance for this time being. And even now, I have health insurance just because I know my mom feels way better me having it. But I still don't book travel insurance.
Naughty. Naughty. Let
Yes,
me tell you why. Wow.
exactly. I want to know, how did your trip to the US start as a nice holiday? And how did it happen that it turned into a whole different experience for you?
Well, let's go back to simpler times, if you will. If you can imagine, the mid years of the early years of the 2010s, circa 2011, life was much more simple, right? So here
Hmm.
I was in Aotearoa, and I met a woman online, and we got to talking and became very close, and slowly but surely developed a relationship. So I was invited to go to America to go hang out with her and meet her. So I did, and that was amazing. And then within 3 weeks, I'd broken both of my legs and had seen the inside of the American health system, um, which was a real shock. Going thinking I was going for this holiday and to possibly start a new relationship and a new life, and being all like very wanting to experience all the things and see a different country and this and America, which we have all been raised on, and it was really amazing up until I jumped down some stairs and broke my legs. So basically, what happened is that I went to hospital. They refused to treat me. They thought I was drunk or on drugs. They wouldn't touch me until they had confirmed that I had travel insurance. So that took them 18 hours. So during that 18 hours, I was sitting in the waiting room with big bags of ice on my knee because I actually broke my knee just below, just on my thigh bone. And also my left heel. That's actually what I broke. So two massive bags of ice. They wouldn't touch me, wouldn't talk to me until they finally found confirmed that I had health insurance. So at that point, they rushed me into the MRI, did all the tests, did all the things, everything, and then they booked me into a bed. Then they didn't talk to me for about 7 or 8 hours, wouldn't give me pain meds because there was all sorts of weird things going on in the background, I guess. And then finally, they did, and then they were like, right, well, we want to operate, and I was like, no, I don't want you to operate. I want to get a second opinion because by that point, I was so over it. I was so over being mistreated and disbelieved and sort of seen. I felt like I was being seen as like a cash cow, like a blank check. And I kind of didn't like the way that I was being treated because being from Aotearoa, if you don't know out there, viewers, we have a socialised health system for the most part. So I grew up in a society that healthcare was a right. So you didn't have to pay. It was there, it was good, and they treated you with respect. So going into an environment where it was a user pays society that you'll be paying thousands of dollars for basic care, right?
Yeah.
I felt it was wrong for them to do that to me. So I demanded to get another opinion. So I did. This is like by day two now. So I've
Yeah.
been sitting.
Still no painkiller, or did they
No,
finally
no.
give
Well,
you?
I also refused painkillers because I didn't trust them. I felt like that they were wanting to get me really doped up and then just kind of force me to sign things, because I just didn't trust them.
Okay.
I didn't trust
Yeah, yeah.
the services that they're providing. So I got another opinion, and the doctor said no, he doesn't need surgery. He just needs to be stabilized. So so a few days later they finally let me out. So then I went back to where I was staying, unable to walk, in a wheelchair, had to get carried in by paramedics in a massive bed. Um, and then I was like, well, what do I do? So my partner at the time, she was a busy mum. So she was working with two kids. So every day she'd leave the house at like 6 a.m. and be back by 6 p.m. So I had to then kind of figure out how to live during that time. So I had to learn literally how to manage getting from the bed to the toilet, to the lounge, to the kitchen, getting food, getting things from the fridge, trying to heat things up in the microwave, doing all that, and then getting with the food to the couch. So every day was a challenge, and every challenge was a victory. And I look back on that, and at the time, it was absolutely awful.
Yeah.
But after it, it's one of the best things I've ever done because it taught me inner strength and resilience, and showed me that I even though I was in my most broken place physically I've ever been in my life,
Literally.
I
Yeah.
was the most empowered because every every meter I move, everything I could do, every time I managed to get to the toilet by myself, every time I managed to make food was another victory.
Yeah.
So I just was like, no, I just have to get through this, get better, work through it, and then enjoy my holiday. So about 6 weeks later, after I had my accident, I was starting. I went back to the hospital and had another one of my checkups, and they said that my bones were healing quite nicely, and then they gave me a boot, a couple of boots, like an ankle boot and a full leg boot, and then said that I could slowly start walking. So, of course, me being me and being very hyper tenacious and cantankerous, which you may or may not have realized this by now, um, I just went, no, I'm just going to push myself. So, luckily, it was summer, and luckily, I'm a summer person, and luckily, I love the water. So, I said to my partner at the time, let's go swimming. And she was like, how are we going to do it? And I was like, it doesn't matter. Just trust me. Let's go. Because it was a bit of a mission to get out of the car. Had to, by that time, I'd sussed out a bit of a method. Because previously to that, if you imagine a dog crawling on its bum, that was
Oh
my
my
main
God.
mode of transport, right? So, but I clocked onto the fact that there was an old skateboard. So I started using that. So that was good. That was a win. So yeah. So then we had to figure out how to get me from the car across the car park, up a few stairs, down a few more stairs, and then down this weirdly steep concrete path to the pool. Which I did, and then the second I got in the water was the second I was like, and that actually being and after that we went to the pool every day, and that really helped. So
Yeah.
once I'd done that a little while, I was like, no, I'm bored. I want to go into the city. This is in Baltimore, Maryland. So, and I was staying way on the north side. So, in geographical terms, if you know Auckland, well, think Albany versus Central City. That sort of distance. So, if you don't know that, it's about 45 minutes drive, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what I had to do then was catch a train into Baltimore, barely able to walk, and then I'd go around all day and then meet up with my partner later on. So that was a challenge. There was another challenge, and another challenge I succeeded in, and it was so bad I could walk literally for 2 meters, and then I'd had to sit. So that's
Yeah.
how I saw Baltimore: 2 meters by
Right.
2 meters by 2 meters. And it was super cool. And I'll harken back to our initial point when I was saying about how I love travel and I love new cultures and new experiences and smelling the smells and seeing the city. That was one of the best ways I've ever seen the city. And there's a lot of lessons in that and methodologies that I implemented in those early missions with broken legs, hobbling literally around Baltimore that I still use today when I go traveling. So what that is being curious, being
Yeah.
wide-eyed, being hyper aware, and being always, always ready to say yes.
So I'm not wanting to judge you, but I think it's fair to say you're a bit crazy.
A little bit, in a good way.
Um, but I have a couple more questions. So, number one, what or who was the doctor, or what was the place? Where was the place you got your second opinion from? Was it another doctor in the US or was it someone from New Zealand?
Yeah, it was another doctor from the US. So I got recommended him by my partner's mother. So
Right.
she got him to come and see me in the hospital. And then he had a look at my X-rays, had a look at my charts, went away, came back, and then passed the referral back through his advice back through to my doctor. So that was a
Right.
bit of a comeuppance for my doctor at the time, and he was very, very apologetic about it. He was like, he actually came to me and said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that we've mistreated you," because I was actually also starting to consider suing because my rights have been stripped. And of course,
Right.
as we
Right.
know, in America,
You can
well,
sue anyone.
So I think that was the fear of God, and after that point, he was actually really, really cool, and we got to
And
know each other
how
quite well.
yeah, I mean, yeah. But how long were you planning to stay? And did you still stay the planned amount of time, or did you end up actually staying longer because of it?
Well, I planned to stay for 4 months, and when I had my accident, I went back to after the smoke had cleared, and I was getting phone calls from my insurer, and they were very, very eager for me to go home.
Yeah.
They were going to get a medevac and everything, because it was covered under my insurance. And I flatly refused. And I said, no, I'm not coming home. And they're like, why? And I was like, well, I'm here for these reasons. I was very transparent about why I was there. And also, I was like, it's summer. And being in hot weather for me right now is the best way that I know I'll be able to heal quickly. Because I knew if I came home to Aotearoa in the middle of our winter, like I'd just be at my flat at the time by myself with no support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an interesting point. And in the first moment, I was like, whoa, he refused to go home, even if people would suggest it. But it's a good point to be like, well, you know yourself the most. You know what support you get when you go back home. You know what support you had at that time. And clearly, your partner at the time were able to support you as much as possible. So it seemed like, or it sounds like, it was going pretty well for that time, and especially under those circumstances. So we sometimes forget what healing means, because healing, like being in a good mental state and with support and feeling good, is also medicine in a way and helps our body to recover faster. And of course, I would have said, like, listen to at least a few advice from your doctor and make sure that, you heal properly and you are not crazy in terms of not being careful enough. But it sounds like you knew also what would help your body. You wanted to move um, hopefully carefully.
Oh yes.
And as you said, you were still there exploring. But then finally coming back to New Zealand, what did the insurance do or did not do? And what were you expecting as a travel insurance holder? How the treatment would go or how checkups would go once you're back home and what actually happened?
Hmm. Well, credit where credit is due. I'm not going to name them, but my insurer was amazing. Outside of them wanting me to come home, but in hindsight, I see what they were trying to do because they were wanting me to come home to be treated for free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So they're really good. So what they did is that they paid for all my healthcare, all my follow-ups, all my medicine, wheelchair hire. I had a wheelchair as well. I forgot to tell you. Commode, all the things they paid for it. And also what they did is that they, because I was a risk of deep vein thrombosis, which is
Yeah.
clots. Yeah. So
Yes.
what they did is that they upgraded my tickets home from the east coast of the United States because it was two flights. So one from BWI, which is Baltimore Washington International Airport, through to SFO, San Francisco, and then a flight from SFO to Auckland. So they upgraded those to first class, which was amazing. So, um,
Wow.
yeah, and I had like wheelchair transfers, priority boarding, everything. And when I got home, I had a medical taxi waiting for me to take me home, and the dude helped me inside with all my stuff and was really good. So they were actually really, really good. Yeah, I can't really say anything bad about them
Yeah.
for that journey, but it was just very tricky when I got home to Aotearoa because I injured myself overseas. I couldn't get ACC, so I was kind of, and I couldn't claim on my medical appointments here. I had to pay for them. So I went to my doctor, my GP, and I applied for ACC, and then I got flatly refused. And then I was like, well, what do I do? What do I do about rehab? What do I do about physio? What do I do about? And I was like, well, if you want to do it, you have to go private. So at the time, I wasn't working. I was working as a freelance in the freelance film industry prior to this. So I didn't have really any money, so I had to go on the benefit, sickness benefit for a while, and then I just had to basically shepherd again, be alone and shepherd myself through recovery. So that was a bit of a hard grind, but the skills that I learned during the first stages in my journey through that to being able to walk and being able to move around, I kind of really went back to that space.
Yeah.
And I just had to be tough, and I had to go for walks and go to the pool and be active because I knew if I wasn't active, it wouldn't get better.
Yeah.
And
But you're
also,
in. Sorry.
pardon?
You
Oh, what were
go.
we going to say? You go.
So your insurance wouldn't necessarily cover the whole, let me say, the impacts it had long term for you with
No, but
the
no,
doctor's appointments and stuff.
no, because I understand looking at policy, right? So I was insured from the day I left New Zealand to the day I got back. So and it was just kind of one of those weird loopholes in this life that you would assume I'd be covered by ACC, right? But the reality wasn't quite like that, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay now, but at the time it was a bit of a slap in the face.
Yeah,
Um,
because you would kind of expect as soon as you leave your country, you paid for insurance that will cover you for that time. Coming home, your home country is taking care of you again because it was an incident or an accident. You would think it's covered, but because it was an accident that happened outside of Aotearoa, it's not going to be covered. Is that kind of how it
Yeah,
happened?
that's exactly what happened. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, our public health system now, and this, s- argu- arguably starting from around 2011 through to definitely now, public health system has been so horribly, horribly underfunded and mismanaged. So there was just no capability, I guess, for my recovery through the public health system. Well, there could have been, but it would have been elongated. I would have been on wait lists for months and months and months and months. So
Yeah.
again, it was just like, well, if I don't do it, I'll have to wait and it'll just get worse. And I want to live
Yeah.
my life. And also at the time, my son was 6 years old, so I had to be a dad for him,
Yes.
and be active and run around. And, I couldn't hold him back.
Yeah. Do you still have impacts from that accident until this day?
Yeah, I do. I do. So, when it gets quite cold, my right knee gets quite sore.
Right.
And also my left heel, which is what I injured, so it gets quite sore.
Mm.
Um, Other than that, no, not really. But it's something that I'll always notice. It does get better and better and better. But
Right.
sometimes I'll misstep and I'll feel like, oh no, I've done something really bad to my knee. But it's just due to the fracture, I think.
Yeah.
I've been to the doctors about it, and they've never seen anything untoward. So thank you.
So it's all healed in their eyes, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And as we know, scars are also aching with weather changes and so on. Like there are a lot of environmental factors to make those ache again, and you can feel it way more. And probably also still some, maybe some nerves or whatever. So I think like breaking your legs is just such a major. Yeah. But what also is very important for me to know, or one of the really important questions to ask, and I think we don't 100% know the full answer, but what do you think, in your opinion, would have happened if you wouldn't have had health insurance or travel insurance?
Hmm. Well, I've thought about this, and I've actually asked, at the time. Um, I would have had to go to some like very low cost medical center, that I still would have had to pay for. So that would have been still quite prohibitive. So that would have
Yeah.
come out of my pocket. I probably would have got I would have been treated, but it would have been much, much longer. Um, I wouldn't have had the same level of care that I did. I would have been put in a very different hospital as opposed to like a very beautiful private hospital.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It would have been a very, very different outcome. Um, and
Yeah.
then I would have came back to New Zealand with a horrendous bill that would have taken me possibly till now to have paid off.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of money wise what type of, like, just a rough idea of how much it could have cost?
Well, yes, I do. So when I got back, about 6 or 7 months after, I hobbled to my letterbox and saw a letter from my insurance company. I was like, "Oh, interesting. What's this?" Hobbled back inside, sat down, opened it up. It was my bill, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And then I quickly skimmed it and freaked out, and skimmed it again, freaked out, almost had a panic attack. Put it down, called my mum. Came back, read it again, and it was like not something I had to pay, but it was a total cost. And the total cost for everything that they did, including my flights home, was 56,000 odd New Zealand dollars.
Right. It's just really good to have an idea, because I think people sometimes don't have a clue how much it actually cost. That little moment of not recklessness, because, I wouldn't say people who don't book that insurance are reckless, because I would say I'm not. But as you can tell, there are so many things that could happen. It's not just health insurance or the insurance of if something health wise happened to you or physically, or it's also if you get robbed, if your luggage disappears, if a train is not going and you have to go by taxi, because that actually happened to me when I once actually booked in another insurance. And it was a time when there were strikes and everything. So I actually had to take a taxi from the airport to my accommodation, which I didn't even know was more than an hour away. Yeah. So I got that back from the insurance. So what I've learned is okay, it's good for all possible outcomes. As your grandma said, take an umbrella, you never know. And it is very true. So, what would be your final advice? Sorry, what? My German accent. What would be your final advice for everyone who is booking trips and also is like me, like, do I really need it? Is it a cost that's worth it? Well, I can just save it. Meh. What would you tell them?
Do it. Always take an umbrella because you never know when it will rain.
Right. And with this amazing last words, I thank you so much for sharing your very personal experience with insurance and with the benefits of it and with just the different treatment, and just for people to understand the importance of being secure or seeing in what position you could catapult yourself, because 56,000 New Zealand dollar, you really need to have a good job to pay that off quickly, and it's just unnecessary costs in comparison to, do you know how much your insurance were costing you in the
Mm,
beginning?
I think at the time, from memory, and this is a long time ago, so it was about 170 New Zealand dollars.
So we can say spend the 200-ish dollars to save potentially 50,000 New Zealand dollars. So thank you so much, Triple SD, for your story, for your time, and for sharing it with us. And I hope that everyone who's watching and listening is learning something from it. I most certainly did. And I think I will reconsider booking this insurance from now on. And I
Thank you
hope,
so much for having me, Hannah. Like, what you do out in the podcast space is absolutely remarkable. Keep telling those stories, keep shining the light, keep empowering us all, and let's go see the world.
thank you. And that's a very good finish for this episode, because yes, we should all go see the world. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone learned something and enjoyed this episode. So thank you. Bye.